look at the Rosetta Stone, um, let's look at, say, the Napoleonic Wars. And when they got the Rosetta Stone, that was one of the keys or part of the informational keys to what they would refer to as letting the genie out of the bottle, or what you would kind of refer to as a lot of the metaphysical nature character of ancient Hikupta, ancient Omexum. And see, because I think when people are looking at alchemy, they're usually projected to look at or encouraged to look at, taking base metals and producing gold, with the metal chart, you know, and from that perspective, and not look at the alchemy inclusive of the biological zoology or zodiacus aspect also in the alchemy. And so this is where a lot of the hybrid Europeans have been reverse engineering and also taking your zodiacus knowledge and Gnostic knowledge and applying what we call in these days the dark magic, or yes, um, and it's not unlike trying to get people to be reasonable and recognize just because water, you can drown in water, recognize that water is also your life. And coming to a comprehension of the use of the laws of nature, the use of the elements of nature, and not the misuse of the elements of nature. And the alchemical science of both social engineering or social organization, etc., is the area that most people will look at when they look at the Rosetta Stone. But you've got to look at the problems that we've had with the hybrids is that they've always taken everything that they've generally learned from ancient Babylonia and made it dark. That's really what our problem is. That's really a great part of our problem. So and so we have this real refiner soap problem where we have to learn to separate the wheat from the chaff type thing. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So therefore we have to go to the depths of our intelligence so that we can make discernment. And we clearly cannot depend on the hybrids for guidance. Although by virtue of them battling to stay in power, they will reveal certain things if you have the eyes to see it. Hmm. So when you're looking at and so this is why it's important, even though it's very mundane in a sense, for people to shed their whole concept of what they thought hell was, and understand all of their problems been coming from these people that they thought was government, that the people that they called their government was actually a coven of dark priests, and that's a fact. However, the elements and the symbolisms that were often used are not necessarily negative. They were just simply misrepresented and made negative. And you can look at it even harmonic with the very problem, like where African people are also referred to as people of the sun, where we're harmonic with the sun, and you find that some hybrids are absolutely the opposite. And so you can kind of comprehend in the nature of things how some paleoliths, where you love the sun, they hate the sun. just the circumstance of the biology. And when you see the cultivation around those things, you know, you don't justify, but you can understand the mentality, you know, distinctions. And this is another reason why a lot of our people sometimes don't understand the reasoning of the heterogeneous hybrid in their dealings with humanity and the sun. How come they put poison in the air? How come they're trying to block the sun? Duh. Sun trying to kill them? Duh. I mean, not that's not a defense, but you have to kind of understand they have a different outlook. Many of them in the atmosphere of Midgard. Why? Because a hybrid it is not a original hybrid, heterogeneous hybrid specifically. An Ingla man or Paleolith or troglodyte nigger is a mixing of by scientific method, not by some other accidental circumstance necessarily, of two different species to create another species. And so you have what you call a species of humanity in purgatory, an alchemical or alchemy purgatory. And you will call that species Roman. And this will be talked about in the Genesis, where the red, ruddy, hairy one, because red, ruddy, that's what Roman means. Roman means red, ruddy. So the red man is really the Paleolith. That's why you see them start calling the Bantu Moors tribes and Naga tribes of North America, you know, red man type thing. No, the red man is the Paleolith. It's not a negative. It's just you got to really know the origin of a lot of these sociological terms that we assume to be one thing. They're not necessarily what you thought they were. And it's not to be misused. It's to be looked at, comprehended, overstood, understood, understood, so we can start, you know, trying to bring some harmony back here. This is again why the treaties were put in place. We're trying to, you know, stop all this confusion. But in the process, you can't hide the truth and fix things. You can't fix things with a lie. Just the truth.
Waiting for more questions.
Hmm?
I'm looking at more comments than questions. Let me say. There was one person said they had received 3 checks, but they hadn't cashed any of them. 3 of the, I guess, the checks from the stimulus.
Oh yeah.
I remember seeing it.
Well, I'm telling you, they're coming from the executor's chamber. And that as a matter of fact, that's where you get the word check from executor. So even in the everyday operations that people have assumed to be one thing, it isn't what you think it is. And for those, you know, if you want to look in ancient Iberia, um, and look at the structure of government, that has much to do with what you're dealing with now, of how they contaminate. Say, right now you see democracies and you see um, monarchy, etc. So look at heptarchy. So when you look at heptarchy, you're looking more of original structures, what we talked about, where your provinces were broken up into your different tribal and nation systems of 7 parts in harmony with Saba culture or Sabian Moorish culture. Because you know, so much of everything dealing on 7 in the cycles of life was always constructed into our social structure. That's why seven has always been so important, um, numerically within Asiatic African culture.
Now, when you look up the definition of that, it says it's a noun, plural, heptarchy, often initial cap letters. The seven principal concurrent Anglo-Saxon kingdoms supposed to have existed in the seventh.
Supposed,
supposed to have existed in the 7th and 8th centuries. Government by 7 persons, an allied group of 7 states or kingdom, each under its own ruler.
And now what you have, so now when you look at the Picts and the Moors and the Dubs, you have to put it in perspective, because when people are looking at Iberia now, in these days, and Phoenicia, which are now known as Europe, their mind is always usually projected to the heterogeneous hybrid or the hybrid Europeans, because of the operations in these last few hundred years. So when they're looking at Iberia, their mind doesn't immediately run to Africa, although they're dealing with Africa still. You see the problem? This is why, again, and for those of you who already know, because I know most of you who come here, we're telling you stuff you already know, truthfully. What we're trying to do is kind of bring some harmony among us all, so that the people that are reawakening on the planet can burn less energy on useless games, useless organizational structures, or structures that are designed to more or less kill their time, or what you call stagnate them, or put them on a mental treadmill so that they can be sacrificed later, because they're going to have to go to their divine mind in order to solve problems. Belief systems, as we have been taught, never did work for humanity. However, they were a source of social solace by design to comfort a body of people who have been devoured, or would you say defeated. And so the dogma systems of the social solace systems, this is where the origin of them being promoted as religion from a sociological point of view, that's how that evolved. But nevertheless, it has become an artificial reality among our people, and that artificial reality must be dissolved in order for our people to start dealing with the true sciences of nature, so that we can start fixing society here at Midgard. And so, we're really having a purging that must take place. And again, while we're having this casual discussion about the lordship of the executors, lordship of maintaining hell on at Midgard, because that's essentially what they've been doing, and we need to kind of have a less emotional conversation about it, a less emotional view, and a more metaphysical, scientific, and actual political, geopolitical uh, analysis of what's really going on, so that we can start constructing solutions and begin to trust ourselves that among us, there are capable ones. However, and I know that you all are thinking some of these things, our difficulties have been, as the people are reawakening, finding honorable men and women who are not just competent in their Gnostic basis, but in their sincere honor and integrity on actually helping to clean up Midgard, because it's a job for everyone, because every man, every woman, and every child must confess their own in this Aquarian light, and that's just simply the truth. And I think because the people have been geared or groomed into this sacrificial lamb type mentality They're still looking for, this sacrificial Jesus image or Serapis image that they can sacrifice, on an altar to cover up for the sin of ignorance type stuff. And the deal of nature is not allowing that, and you must be aware of that.
There's a brother here, Eritrean here in the House of Reawakening, and I can't call his name because everything there looks like it's written in hieroglyph. But just to acknowledge, because you talk a lot about Eritrea, and Saba and so forth. So we recognize you, brother. Just can't say your appellation with that. But let me just say if there's anything else if there are any questions. If you have questions that that are relevant that you want to no personal questions, like no help me out with this problem questions, but general questions that you would like to ask Grand Sheik, if you mind. I'm trying to scroll through the comments to see if there are any specific questions that need to be answered that are not personal in nature, but more of a general nature.
The other thing too, Dr. Anaya, if we could get the people just beginning, and they're doing it truthfully because they really are, to start thinking again. Yeah. The solutions are in them. But people have been trained for so many generations by the priesthood not to believe in themselves, not to trust themselves, and to keep looking for this is so we're creatures of habit, and they're depending on people maintaining the habits that they've been trained in for generations to keep looking to the priesthood, not knowing that the priesthood was really the vampire. And this is again why the dark priesthood has been successful, because they've been playing the vicar. That's why it's important. Explain to them people the vicar, please, Dr. Naila.
The vicar means the substitute.
So there's a substitute. It's also a placebo, isn't it?
Right. It means according to them, and I'm looking over there, I have the catechism. I'm sure it's a little brown book. I have a catechism book over there, but in particular, in the catechisms, one of the things they'll say, for instance, who changed the Sabbath to Sunday? And they say, we did.
The vicars.
Yes. The vicars did. We made the Sabbath Sunday.
So what did they do? They contaminated, didn't they?
Yes.
And they don't deny it. They don't deny it.
Well, we didn't read, so they can put everything in the book. Yeah. And tell the truth and absolve themselves.
See, from a karmic perspective, yeah. This is the reason why. This is the reason why when you're dealing with jurisprudence, they will always say things like that the people keep consenting to be their slave. Mm-hmm. And then the people won't take responsibility that they're consenting. And therefore, they're in contempt. They're due to the contempt that the personating judges or personating gods have a right to meet sovereign punishments upon them and to steal their estates. And so this is where you get the contempt that is expressed by a lot of people in government against the people. They're actually contemptuous of the people because the people keep defending their ignorance. And then the people keep on supporting or voting for the demons, democracy, demons, and then complaining about the results. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. Immoral, yes. Unethical, yes. But the deal is what we're also seeking is the people to start taking responsibility. Not because we're suggesting, because really they're going to have to discover either willingly or not that they will be taking responsibility one way or another. You either take responsibility or become sacrificed. Rough, but kind of fair.
Let me see what we got here. Let me see. I did see a question up here. Let me see if I can go back there. Here's DJ Red says, I really just want to know if we are the Aboriginal people or original people?
Aboriginal, ab means first.
First and from.
And you can say original, yes. It still means you're really both. Because aboriginal means the first.
Okay. All right. Here's another. Did I miss the cell memory and how to activate the knowledge meditation? I don't think we did that. Um, let me see. Yeah, we'll be putting out the information for the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, we're going to have to, because the deal of it is, the dark priesthood is attacking truth like a wild wolf right now. As the world is reawakening, they are upping their game. Biological warfare, viral warfare, political warfare, psychological warfare, military warfare, economic warfare, sociological engineering warfare, which they've been doing all the time. It's just that they're not wasting time setting up smokescreen programs like they used to. They're just being blunt. And so this is, some people are uncomfortable with it, but it's not new. It's just that the priesthood's masks are off. Remember we were saying the last few years, all masks are off. And because the people could see it if they were willing, it's just that it's going to become more and more and more and more undeniable by them and also by you. So what you going to do? Because that's basically where we're at right now.
Yeah, let me see. Okay. Ready to test it. Word Sheila, Dr. G, I ask if crystals are good to have. They're very healing to me. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's just that you have to make sure you have the right crystal for you.
So now you're going back to the culture, right, to know.
You also need to know that you don't have crystals that counteract and conflict with each other. So crystals are good, which kind of, one of the things I have in mind for my little auction is a book about crystals. I mean, it's cards on crystals, but yes, crystals generally are good. You just need to make sure. And I don't know why I don't list and show people all the crystals that I have down here. All of those are crystals, and
oh yeah,
I need to make.
A lot of stuff you had for years, and you just
those I have.
No, but none of the ones you talked about that you had. You told me about the ones you had under your bed for years.
Well, yeah, I didn't know what they were. Yeah. I had a big old conflict going on right there. I do sleep better now that the box of I had like I don't know 50 different crystals in a box that I had stuck under the bed.
Yeah, but you want to kind of separate them.
Yeah, so because all crystals are not created equal for whatever purposes you need. So make sure everybody has some sage though. Because now look, everybody should have sage or Palo Santo. Yeah, clearance. Anyway.
Well, again, isn't it back to the culture that already was?
Yeah.
But the deal of is having a comprehension of why your forefathers did certain things.
Yes.
Because they're harmonic with nature.
Absolutely.
And then you start recognizing that they were given negative connotations by the hybrids for you to abandon them. Then they gave you idol gods in place of it that's been destroying you. There you go.
Absolutely. What we did worked. What we had was what we needed. And we need to get back there. And that's the thing that's going to defeat the actions and the all of the operations that have been put in place against us.
Yeah, the exploiters.
That's how you can say
the vampires.
Remember the biblical thing: no weapon formed against you shall prosper. I mean, you got to have the right tools in order to defend yourself.
And it's always been around you. It's not like what do we do? I mean, how we continuously use our Bibles and our Qurans and Owaspis and Torahs, etc., to express the culture and then don't study the culture from what all these books come from. It's almost like they speak of it and then You know, it's sort of like you look the image and don't live the image. And because everybody's doing that, thinking that we're doing our deed type thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like we, you know, like Dr. Naila, like you talk about, you know, like people keep talking about church. And if you ask the average person who's been going to churches most of their life what church is, they'll start telling you it's the building.
Yeah, they'll
And
tell you.
don't know that it's an abstract of the great astrological or circle.
Well, the very thing that church denounces, you know,
Is what church is.
astrology
Is what church is.
That is funny.
You know, and so, and this is why, you know, and I think more now people can comprehend when we be saying or making a statement. Many people have gone to those buildings, but very few people have ever been to church.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the priests have known that, and it was the priests who have been doing that to them.
Now, I had a conversation with another sort of kind of former pastor who had listened to you talk about all pastors, all priests, all whatever know this, and he and I, this was just like yesterday, maybe, or the day before yesterday. It was in the last 2 days, and he was a little offended because he said he didn't know, and I said, "Don't be offended.
There's no need to be offended."
Well, I didn't know because when we say we didn't know, you know, there are. I told him there you have to be pretty high up though. When you get into these mega things, mega congregations and so forth, there's no way you get there unless you definitely know. And then the others of us stumble like I did on the truth or awakened by the truth,
and then turn a blind eye because they're vested, like you want to say.
Either you turn a blind eye or you do what I did do and you step out on the truth. You know, I turned my back on, you know, on fraud.
What you knew was what you learned was fraud.
I had to, but others won't do it. They'll know it. Those are the ones when you say when they find out.
Now, and I say this, and I say this. I say this. This is what I say. You know how like you know, when we're discussing some things that we're doing around, you know, physically on a carpentry level and a construction level and a basic structural physics engineering level. And like for instance, when you're sitting here and I was building them shells, and the shells being squared and level and plumb in their structure expose actually the warpage in the walls that otherwise you didn't notice.
No.
You know, but it's not something that we weren't, from an engineering perspective, actually dealing with from the time that we started doing work on this house, correcting, you know. But when you start seeing the, you know, the squares and the angles, you know, just like you can look up there, right? And a person who doesn't understand structure looks at it one way, but someone who understands structure already understand that he definitely doesn't have kiln dried lumber in there, and that they got rid of a lot of their trash, if you get the whole point. Or you could tell that they were flipping. They weren't trying to really make something proper. And the reason I'm saying that is to say this. You know how like when it, like being a barber, right? And my father was a barber. Over the years, when you're dealing with hair, you're dealing with bone structure. You actually deal with a study from a doctor's point of view, right? When you're studying cosmetology, and you know the tests that you would take would be in a doctorate level for germicides, you know, fungus, hair texture, you know, looking at how hair grows from the crown, etc., different textures. And as you deal with these things over the years, by virtue of what you do, you learn also, not just from the established literary structured literary learning of both biological and structure, hair structure and follicles, etc. You learn from experience. And the reason I've always said that, you know how like so someone's working with carpentry for years and you work in different types of buildings, you begin to learn certain structures, even though technically when you're dealing with blueprint reading and carpentry principles and angles and cuts and complex angles, etc., and wood densities based on hardwoods to softwoods, common woods, less common woods, rare woods, how they're used, what situations you would use them in, certain situations you would not use them in, thicknesses, widths of wood used in different structures for different purposes, whether in joists, as an example, or in rafters, etc. So by default, you learn certain things. So I've always said this, and what I recognize over the years, like say, if someone is over the years studying the Bible, as an example, and they've literally made a business out of it, you know, and they've been collecting finance from people over the years, and they get degrees. And if you're studying, we're not talking about people who are playing these emotional games, pretending to be so-called erudite. But if you're studying, there's no way you can study the Bible and not learn Septuagintus. They're your first Bibles. You see what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
And this is why you see me will say when people, if someone's just talking casually on the corner or something like that, right? You can kind of give them a little leeway. But when someone puts up a sign and takes on a title of imam, pastor, rabbi, you know, bishop, reverend, those titles are PhDs. All those titles are adepts. And so if you say you're a carpenter and someone charges you with violating the use of a saw, then you say, well, some of us don't know what a saw is. If you said you're a carpenter, you can be held to having the responsibility to know what a saw and a hammer is. And so I say, anyone who studies religion and gets into it and makes it a business, and you've been in it for years, these things come across your path by default. Now, what you find is that when people start discovering these things, what they do is they start looking at the sociological positions that they're in, the vestments that they're in,